Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. Our top focus tonight is on the Russia-Ukraine war. A lot happening on the battlefield, with Russia unleashing a massive overnight barrage of missiles and drones across Ukraine, ripping into the country's energy infrastructure and hitting the civilian areas. The attack also rattled neighboring Poland. Where do the efforts to end the war stand at this point? We decode that for you in just a bit. Also on the show for you tonight, telling you all about Pakistan's multi-billion-dollar arms deal with Libya. Make America Trump again seems to be the theme, as the US president now names new warships after himself. You don't want to miss this. All this and more coming up. From central to western Ukraine, Russia unleashed a massive overnight barrage of missiles and drones across the country, ripping into the energy infrastructure, civilian areas, causing utter destruction on the ground. Air raid sirens wailed across almost the entire country as Ukraine's Air Force warned of hundreds of drones, dozens of Russian missiles heading towards Ukrainian territory. And according to the Ukrainian authorities, at least 3 people were killed, over a dozen injured in the attacks. Ukraine's energy ministry has claimed the attack deliberately targeted energy infrastructure. And according to the ministry, Rivne, Ternopil in western Ukraine, almost completely without electricity. Emergency power outages enforced across multiple areas. Russia's defense ministry has said it attacked Ukrainian energy and military facilities and captured 2 villages along the front line in Ukraine. And the scale of this attack also rattled neighboring Poland. Poland's military said it scrambled fighter jets to secure its airspace during the strikes. The president of Ukraine, meanwhile, saying Russia launched more than 650 drones, over 3 dozen missiles aimed at what he called the entire infrastructure of life. And the president said at least 13 oblasts came under attack, the human cost of the war continuing to climb with that. According to the local authorities, in Zhytomyr Oblast, the attack killed a 4-year-old child, injured 5 others. Authorities have said 3 people, including 2 children, were injured. 1 child later died in the hospital. In Kyiv Oblast, local authorities claiming 1 person was killed, 3 others injured. But the entire toll, the actual toll of the war, remains hidden. It seems Ukraine classifying its military losses as a state secret. However, a study published 6 months ago by the US-based Center for Strategic and International Studies estimated Ukrainian deaths standing at between 60,000 and 100,000. Russian losses estimated to be far higher. And according to the British Ministry of Defense, more than 1 million Russian troops have been killed or injured since the war started in February 2022. Until June 2025. And that assessment aligns with the CSIS estimates, which place Russian military deaths at up to 250,000 and total casualties above 950,000. While an intelligence update by the British Ministry of Defence from earlier today stated that more than 400,000 troops have been killed or injured in the war in both 2025 and 2024. That's where the numbers stand. Ukraine's losses visible in another way as well. While the death toll remains classified, the country's graveyards are not. In the western Ukrainian city, Lviv, located near the Polish border, a burial site established 2 months after the war to bury the fallen soldiers has reportedly run out of graves. And against this backdrop, diplomacy continues to struggle. Zelensky has said initial drafts of the US proposals for a peace deal meet many of Kyiv's demands, but in a report in Politico, the US Vice President offered a rather bleak assessment, saying he does not have confidence that a peaceful solution is achievable. This is as the war is now entering its 4th year. Our next story is from the United States. The Pentagon has released a new report warning that its geopolitical rival China has likely loaded more than 100 intercontinental ballistic missiles across newly built missile silo fields near China's border with Mongolia. And the US reportedly believes China has locked and loaded new ICBMs in the newly constructed missile silos. The draft Pentagon report has already sent out shockwaves naturally and has clearly irked Beijing. China dismissed the findings, calling reports of a military buildup an attempt to smear and defame China and deliberately mislead the world. But what exactly is Washington worried about and what's going on? Here's what the Pentagon report says. China is expanding and modernizing its nuclear weapons stockpile faster than any other nuclear-armed power. And that assessment basically comes from the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. The Pentagon report says Beijing has likely installed more than 100 solid fuel intercontinental ballistic missiles across 3 new major silo fields near Mongolia. While the Pentagon had earlier confirmed the existence of the silos, this is the first time a number of missiles have been reported. A number of missiles has been reported. The report says China shows no appetite for arms control discussions, even as the US president signaled last month itself that he may be exploring denuclearization talks with China as well as Russia. The report said, I'm quoting now, "We continue to see no appetite from Beijing for pursuing such measures." China has pushed back strongly. Its embassy in Washington says Beijing follows a defensive nuclear strategy, keeps its nuclear forces at the minimum level required for security, and adheres to a no first use policy. The Pentagon report also says China's nuclear warhead stockpile stood in the low 600s last year, but also warns that Beijing is on track to cross 1,000 warheads by 2030. The United States, by comparison, is estimated to hold over 5,000 nuclear warheads. The Pentagon report also raises alarm beyond nuclear weapons. It says China believes it could fight and win a war over Taiwan by 2027. Beijing, remember, claims Taiwan as its own territory and is refining military options, reportedly, including long-range strikes that could seriously challenge US forces across the region. And the report comes just weeks before the expiry of the New START Treaty, the last remaining nuclear arms control agreement between the US and Russia. And now experts are warning that without diplomatic efforts, the world could be heading towards a new 3-way nuclear arms race. China, however, insisting that it does not engage in nuclear arms races and says the actual responsibility for disarmament lies with Washington. But then the larger question is, as the old treaties expire, countries continue to expand their arsenals reportedly, isn't a new nuclear arms race already underway? Switching gears, Pakistan is openly flouting a United Nations weapons embargo and calling it a strategic breakthrough. In a move that has raised eyebrows across circles, Islamabad has reportedly sealed an arms deal worth billions with eastern Libya's Libyan National Army, a faction operating in a country still under a strict UN ban on military transfers. Let's just break this down for you. The reported $4 billion plus arms deal with the Libyan faction is now being touted as a breakthrough for Islamabad's defense exports. This deal was finalized reportedly after a high-profile meeting in Benghazi between Pakistan's Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir and Saddam Khalifa of the Libyan National Army. And this agreement includes the sale of 16 JF-17 fighter jets, 12 Super Mushak trainer aircraft, and if executed, it would rank among the largest weapons sales in Pakistan's history. The deal fits neatly into Islamabad's long-stated goal of expanding its defense exports footprint. And over the past decade itself, the JF-17 in particular has been marketed as a lower-cost alternative to Western fighter jets. However, there are several key takeaways that go beyond the headline figure. First, the political risk, it's immense. You see, selling arms to the LNA directly flouts the UN embargo, and this opens Pakistan to international scrutiny and potential diplomatic costs as well. Second, the deal highlights just how deeply the military, rather than the civilian government, dominates Pakistan's foreign and security policy. It is the army chief, not the prime minister, acting as the chief deal maker and strategic spokesman all over again. The jet angle also deserves a closer look. The JF-17 is a co-produced platform with China, which basically means exports are not purely a Pakistani decision. Any large-scale transfer requires Chinese consent, spares, support, and long-term maintenance pipelines. Now, it's against this backdrop that Asim Munir's rhetoric in Libya takes on greater significance. Speaking not just as a military person, but as a self-appointed statesman, it seems he positioned Pakistan as a leading security actor for the Muslim world. Munir warned that the world has become increasingly hostile, particularly for Muslim nations. Let's just play out that statement for you.
In today's world, there is no rule of law. Actually, it is the law of the jungle which prevails, and the law of the jungle is might is right. And this might, which resides somewhere else today, and it's not there with the Muslim world, is essentially because of the possession of the knowledge that they have taken from us.
But then the reality at home undermines that vision. Pakistan is grappling with severe inflation, a weak currency, foreign reserves that have repeatedly forced it into IMF bailouts. We've been telling you about this. Millions on the ground struggling to afford basic food and energy. A state strained to manage its own economic security, to say the least, is now trying to portray itself as a regional and religious security guarantor. Previously, Pakistan had called for an Eastern Islamic NATO alliance. Remember, Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister seemed to believe that Pakistan, despite being financially bankrupt, could someday lead the 57-member Islamic world. Remember, this is the same Pakistan that has been accused time and again of sheltering terror groups. But here's the real question. What does Pakistan bring to the table? Except instability, economic collapse, and also a dangerous legacy of radicalism. How can a country that is unable to defend its own economy and safeguard its own state of affairs strike deals with other countries, that too flouting UN embargoes? Our next story from the United States, or should we say Trumperica. US President Donald Trump, who has never shied away from turning the presidency into a personal branding project, has done it once again. He has announced a brand new class of American warships. What's the big deal, you ask? Well, the warships are named after him. Speaking from his Mar-a-Lago residence in Florida, Trump unveiled what he called a major step in strengthening America's naval power. The new warships will be known as the Trump class. And the president claimed these ships will be the largest battleships ever built by America or by any part of the world. Trump said he has approved a plan for the U.S. Navy to start constructing 2 massive warships. The Navy, according to Trump, will lead the design with his personal inputs. The first ship in the class has been named USS Defiant. Trump said the warships are not aimed at any one country. He insisted they are meant to counter any future threat and to ensure peace through strength.
As Commander-in-Chief, it is my great honor to announce that I have approved a plan for the Navy to begin the construction of 2 brand new, very large, the largest we've ever built, battleships. Each one of these will be the largest battleship in the history of our country, the largest battleship in the history of the world ever built.
Now, this announcement was made in the presence of top U.S. officials, including the Secretary of the Navy, who described the Trump-class warships as the most powerful and versatile warships in the world's oceans.
The future Trump-class battleship, the USS Defiant, will be the largest, deadliest, and most versatile and best-looking warship anywhere on the world's oceans.
But then again, this is not the first time Trump has moved to put his name or his image on American institutions. In fact, across the United States, a growing number of buildings, programs, public assets already named after Trump or are facing moves to be rebranded in his honor. Earlier, the Trump administration, remember, formally renamed the U.S. Institute of Peace as the Donald J. Trump U.S. Institute of Peace. And that decision followed a bitter legal and political fight over the control of the independent body, which was created by the Congress and had traditionally operated outside the executive branch. Despite the ongoing court challenges, the State Department saying the renaming reflects what it called Trump's role as America's greatest deal maker. And the move was naturally mocked by Democrats, including the California governor. The Kennedy Center. In December, its board voted to rename the iconic arts venue the Trump Kennedy Center. And Trump, now the chairman of the board, has also installed allies in key positions, reportedly. The decision has been strongly opposed by Democratic trustees and members of the Kennedy family, who say any name change requires congressional approval and legal questions over the move remain unresolved. And that's not even all. Trump's branding push has also extended to government programs. Take, for example, the Trump Gold Card. It offers wealthy foreign applicants a fast track to U.S. residency in exchange for large payments to the U.S. Treasury. Critics have called it citizenship for sale. The Trump administration has also launched Trump accounts, tax-advantaged investment accounts for children born during Trump's current term. Even America's national park passes have not been spared. The Interior Department earlier unveiled a new design featuring Trump's portrait replacing traditional scenic images. Within days, conservation groups filed a lawsuit calling the move an attack on the neutrality of public lands. That's how far it's gone. And the list does not even end there. Proposals still pending include renaming the Washington International Airport, the DC metro system, even adding Trump's image to U.S. currency and Mount Rushmore. Most of these moves are tied up in the Congress or are facing legal roadblocks. But then to supporters, they present a president leaving his mark. The question that many are then left asking is, where does presidential legacy end and personal branding start? Also coming up for you on the show tonight, what is the new weapon of fear that Russia is designing? Getting you a detailed report. This is coming up next. A reminder from Russia to Bangladesh. Don't forget 1971. Telling you more about this in just a bit. ISRO set to launch the heaviest ever commercial satellite, telling you all that you need to know and why this is a major move. All this and lots more coming up. A fresh warning from Western intelligence could reshape the future of modern warfare, not on land, not at sea, but all the way in space. According to a report by the Associated Press, 2 intelligence services from NATO countries suspect that Russia is developing a new kind of anti-satellite weapon aimed directly at Elon Musk's Starlink network. The goal is simple, also dangerous. Reportedly to knock out the space advantage that has helped Kyiv in the Russia-Ukraine war. This weapon is not a missile in the traditional sense. Intelligence findings seen by the Associated Press describe it as a massive cloud of tiny metal pellets, like shrapnel, that could be spread across the same orbit where Starlink satellites operate. Starlink satellites orbit our planet at about 550 kilometers above Earth. Thousands of them beam high-speed internet to Ukraine's military, government, civilians, especially where Russian strikes have destroyed the communication networks. Ukrainian forces relying on Starlink to talk to each other, guide the weapons, coordinate defenses. And according to the intelligence assessment, Russia views Starlink as a serious threat. And instead of targeting one satellite at a time, this new system would basically aim to disable many at once. That's how dangerous it could be. The pellets would be just millimeters wide, small enough to avoid most tracking systems, but potentially powerful enough to damage or destroy satellites on impact. But space is not empty, it is crowded. Experts are saying that flooding the orbit with debris could trigger uncontrollable chaos, damaging satellites belonging not just to the West, but also to Russia and China. Communications, navigation, weather monitoring, military systems could all end up bearing the brunt. Analysts are warning such an attack could backfire spectacularly. And Russia has publicly called for bans on weapons in space. President Putin has denied plans to deploy nuclear space weapons. But the Russian officials have repeatedly warned that commercial satellites aiding Ukraine could become legitimate targets, reportedly. This month, Moscow also announced the combat deployment of the S-500 missile system. The S-500 missile system capable of hitting low-orbit targets like the Starlink satellites. Now, while the intelligence findings claim that the pellets could possibly be released from a formation of small satellites, the report does not actually say when or if this pellet-based system will be deployed. But it claims that the program remains in development and details remain highly sensitive. As more details emerge, the next battlefield may soon be circling right above our heads. Meanwhile, a frozen frontier is heating up. Washington flexing its Arctic ambition. Brussels firing back with solidarity. Greenland is caught in the crossfire. A trusted ally is turning into an adversary. The race for the roof of the world has just started. Take a look.
Ice is cracking. Tempers are rising. The Arctic is no longer a frozen backwater. It's the front line of global power. Greenland is slowly becoming the most dangerous piece of ice on Earth. Greenland, vast, frozen, and sparsely populated, is now at the center of a geopolitical storm after Donald Trump declared his intent loud and clear.
We need Greenland for national security. And if you take a look at Greenland, you look up and down the coast, you have Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need it for national security. We have to have it.
The response was immediate and furious.
The
integrity of the kingdom is up to the kingdom. I am standing here in the Faroe Islands, and as long as we have a kingdom which consists of Denmark, the Faroe Islands, and Greenland, we cannot accept that anyone challenges our sovereignty. Denmark and Greenland pushed back hard, making it clear Greenland is not for sale, not for seizure, not for bargaining. The European Union stepped in too. EU Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen pledged full solidarity with Greenland, signaling that Europe will not stand by if Arctic sovereignty is challenged. Greenland is strategically vital due to its prime Arctic location. This, specifically at a time of rising US, Chinese and Russian interest in the Arctic. So why does Trump want Greenland? The answer lies beneath the ice. Greenland sits on critical Arctic sea routes that are rapidly opening as climate change melts polar ice. These routes slash thousands of kilometers off shipping lanes between Europe, Asia, and North America, routes that could soon rival the Suez Canal. And below the surface lies treasure, rare earth minerals, uranium, critical resources essential for electric vehicles, missiles, satellites, and clean energy. China has already tried to gain a foothold here. Russia is militarizing the Arctic coastline. Washington doesn't want to be late to the fight. Trump has sparked a fresh row with Denmark after appointing a special envoy to Greenland. He had earlier attempted to buy the island. This time, the stakes are higher, the language sharper. Greenland's leaders insist their future will be decided by Greenlanders alone. Denmark says sovereignty is non-negotiable. Europe warns that borders cannot be redrawn by ambition. What was once a silent sheet of ice has become a battlefield of influence, and the showdown has only just begun.
As relations between India and Bangladesh continue to sour, an old friend to both countries has weighed in. The Russian ambassador to Bangladesh has urged Dhaka to de-escalate the tensions with New Delhi. There have been a number of diplomatic escalations by Bangladesh in recent days, remember. And in the latest, today, India summoned the Bangladeshi High Commissioner. He was summoned following a similar move by Bangladesh earlier in the day. The Indian High Commissioner in Dhaka was summoned for the second time in 10 days. He was called because Dhaka reportedly wanted to convey grave concern over the recent protests outside Bangladesh's diplomatic and consular facilities in India. Protests have been taking place in India over the recent lynching of a Bangladeshi Hindu man, Deepu Chandra Das, who was reportedly killed on December 18 following accusations of blasphemy. And today's protests outside the Bangladesh High Commission in New Delhi drew hundreds of demonstrators. Some of them broke through the barricades around the facility, but they were stopped from reaching the High Commission building. They were then taken into custody. India has maintained that it has kept the Bangladeshi diplomatic facilities safe, as required by the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. But Dhaka reacted sharply to the protests in India, putting out regular statements of concern, summoning the Indian envoy in Dhaka twice so far. Bangladesh has also suspended all visa and consular services in New Delhi and the city of Siliguri. That's where major protests took place. Now, it's amid this tense backdrop that the Russian ambassador made those remarks at a press conference in the Russian embassy in Dhaka. He said, I'm quoting now, "The sooner you reduce the tension, the better, because historically, since 1971, when Bangladesh gained independence, it was mostly because of Indian help," quote unquote. Not just that, he also reminded Bangladesh that Russia had played its part in its liberation and that India, Bangladesh, and Russia should continue to work shoulder to shoulder. India, remember, played an instrumental role in helping Bangladesh get its independence from Pakistan in 1971. Between 1947 and 1971, what is today known as Bangladesh was called East Pakistan, remember, and the people of East Pakistan suffered decades of repression and neglect from the authorities. And even when an East Pakistani party, the Awami League, swept the elections in 1970, the region was not given the power it was due. Instead, Islamabad launched Operation Searchlight in March 1971, which led to mass killings and arrests in East Pakistan. This is what ignited the Bangladeshi freedom struggle. And on December 3rd, Islamabad launched Operation Genghis Khan, targeting 11 Indian airfields. And this is when India decided to officially enter the war on the side of the Bangladeshi revolutionaries. But Pakistan was not without its friends. The US sent a part of its 7th Fleet, Task Force 74, to the Bay of Bengal. It was led by what was then the world's largest aircraft carrier, the USS Enterprise. America also sent several guided missile destroyers and other ships as part of the task force. The goal was to try and intimidate India, get New Delhi to back off, and allow Pakistan to quash any hopes of Bangladeshi freedom. But the Americans were not prepared to deal with India's old friend, the Soviet Union. New Delhi sent an urgent message to Moscow, asked for help dealing with the Americans, and the Soviets came through. They dispatched nuclear-armed submarines and destroyers from Vladivostok to the Far East. The Russian fleet moved to intercept the Americans before they could reach India, and the Russian submarines encircled the US Naval Task Force, prevented the Americans from threatening India, and India could continue to help the Bangladeshi revolutionaries. Eventually, this led to victory just days later, and that is how Moscow, Delhi, and Dhaka stood shoulder to shoulder. And that is what the Russian ambassador asked today's Bangladeshi interim government to recall. But will the new faces in Dhaka be willing to listen, is the question. Is the United States spying over Nigeria? According to a new report by Reuters, the United States has been conducting intelligence gathering flights over large parts of Nigeria since late November. And the report cites flight tracking data as well as current and former US officials. Exactly what information these flights are collecting remains unclear reportedly, but the data points to a sharp increase in security cooperation between Washington and the other side. The flights coming just days after US President Donald Trump issued warnings to Nigeria, threatening possible military action over what he described as the country's failure to stop violence against Christian communities. The timing here is also very important. The surveillance operations coming only months after a US pilot working for a missionary group was kidnapped in neighboring Niger. And now, according to December flight data, the aircraft used for these missions is operated by a US defense contractor taking off from Ghana, flying across Nigerian airspace and returning to Accra. The operator is Mississippi-based Tenax Aerospace, reportedly a company that provides special mission aircraft and works closely with the US military, reportedly. Experts say the operation appears to be run from Accra, a known hub for US military logistics in Africa. Analysts believe this could be an early sign that the US is rebuilding its intelligence presence in the region after being forced to leave a major airbase in Niger last year, as that country turned to Russia for security support. Former US officials saying the missions likely include tracking the kidnapped American pilot and gathering intelligence on militant groups operating in Nigeria. These include Boko Haram and the Islamic State West Africa province. A current US official confirmed the flights are taking place but declined to provide details, citing diplomatic sensitivity. Washington, for that matter, says it is working with Nigeria to address the religious violence and the spread of terrorism. Nigeria, for its part, insisting the violence is complex and not targeted at any one religion, but has agreed to deepen security cooperation with the United States. The development also comes as Nigeria struggles with a growing security crisis, including mass kidnappings, deadly attacks on civilians, and a recent security emergency declared by the president. So the question still is, are these flights a sign that Washington is preparing for a much bigger role in West Africa? We'll have to wait and watch for the answer. India's most powerful rocket all set to roar once again. Tomorrow morning, Bahubali, the heavy lift launcher, will launch the heaviest satellite ever strapped to an Indian rocket into low Earth orbit. And this time, the payload is not just about space, it's about a direct shot at the multi-billion-dollar global launch market. Take a look.
3, 2, 1, 0.
The beast stands ready. India's LVM-3 rocket, towering against the Sriharikota sky, prepares to shatter its own records. It carries 6,100 kilograms of American ambition into the cosmos. Bluebird 6, the heaviest payload India has ever launched. The stakes couldn't be higher. 8 missions, 8 perfect launches. The LVM-3 has never failed. Wednesday's payload on ISRO's rocket is special. Bluebird 6 isn't just heavy, it's revolutionary. For using Starlink, one needs dishes and OneWeb demands special terminals. AST Space Mobile beams internet straight to the phone, already in your hand. No extra hardware, no ground infrastructure, just satellite speaking directly to smartphone. The American firm has partnered with 50+ mobile network operators serving nearly 3 billion subscribers. While the launch of Bluebird 6 is being carried out from Indian soil, such direct-to-mobile satellite internet services have not been approved by the Indian government. For ISRO, the launch means more than technical triumph. India storms into the commercial launch battlefield where SpaceX, Ariane Space and Roscosmos wage billion-dollar wars. The global space launch services market is expected to reach 60 billion by 2033. For ISRO, every kilogram lifted means revenue. Every successful mission builds reputation. America trusts India with its breakthrough technology. That trust speaks volumes. When Bahubali roars to life, flames illuminating the skies, India doesn't just launch a satellite. It launches a statement the world watches.
This is a mission that will last about 15 minutes, and in these 15 minutes the satellite will be placed in an orbit barely 510 kilometers above the Earth. This is an internet beaming satellite belonging to a company known as AST Space Mobile. In fact, the countdown for this mission began this morning. It's a 24-hour countdown, and this countdown will come to an end 8:55 a.m. Indian time on Wednesday, and that's when the rocket will blast off. From Chennai, Siddharth MP, WION World is One.
The Aravalli controversy showing no signs of cooling down, with the debate raging over India's ancient mountain range known for the ecological importance and also the historical legacy. The Aravallis are now in the spotlight again as politics and environmental concerns collide. The Congress party questioning why the centre seems hell-bent on redrawing the boundaries of the ancient hills, asking who stands to benefit from the move. And leading the charge this time is the Congress General Secretary Jairam Ramesh, who voiced his concerns on social media, alleging that the Environment Minister's recent clarifications only raise more questions and doubts. And according to him, the latest statements fail to address the long-standing worries about conservation, mining and the protection of the region's fragile ecosystem. Accusing the BJP-led government at the centre and in Rajasthan of misleading the people on the extent of mining proposed in the Aravallis, the Congress party in Rajasthan has announced a mass agitation across 19 districts against the criterion of only including hills higher than 100 meters in the mountain range. Now, this comes just a day after the Environment Minister claimed that mining would be allowed in only 0.19% of the Aravalli area and that no new mines have been opened. Here's what he said.
माइनिंग सुप्रीम कोर्ट का जो प्लान है, साइंटिफिक प्लान, पहले साइंटिफिक प्लान होगा, ICFR होगी, उसके बाद सोचा जाएगा, पर मैं बिल्कुल स्पष्ट रूप से बता रहा हूं 0.19% से ज्यादा में हो ही नहीं पाएगी.
While the government presents this as a limited measure, critics are saying it does little to actually allay the concerns about the long-term impact on the region. The Aravalli range stretches across Rajasthan, Haryana, Gujarat, and the National Capital Region. Older than the Himalayas, these hills serve as a natural barrier against desertification, recharge groundwater, reduce air pollution, and provide critical habitats for wildlife in some of India's most densely populated areas. Environmentalists and local communities fear that even limited mining or redrawing of boundaries could have long-lasting impact on the ecology and the livelihoods dependent on the Aravallis. And as the discussions and the claims and the counterclaims continue, the activities around the Aravallis standing at a major juncture. Shifting focus, visuals released by North Korea state media showing the Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un and his daughter inspecting newly completed hotels at a mountain resort located near the border with China, offering a rare glimpse of what life is like inside North Korea. Take a look. After the Louvre Museum heist fiasco, another high-profile robbery story rocking France, and this comes straight from France's presidential palace. This is about the alleged theft of precious tableware. Scandalous to say the least, and especially after the Louvre heist. In fact, a senior staff member at the presidential palace will stand trial over the alleged theft alongside two others. Reportedly, around 100 objects reported missing from the presidential collection were allegedly found in the locker, car and home of the man reported to be the palace's chief butler. Reportedly, the man's role was head butler and keeper of precious silver. So the job involved setting the tables at grand events like state dinners, for example. And according to the prosecutors, reportedly, the inventory kept by the man suggested that he was planning to steal more items. What about the items allegedly stolen? They reportedly include champagne glasses, porcelain plates, solid silver cutlery. The man was reportedly arrested on 16th of December on suspicion of theft alongside his partner. A third individual who is reportedly accused of receiving stolen goods was arrested a day later. And this is not the kind of deja vu that the people of France or the image of the country can afford at this point, coming right after the massive Louvre heist sent shockwaves around the world and triggered a series of questions. Now, this trial is reportedly scheduled for February. Our next story is about the Pope, who is fast becoming one of the most culturally engaged popes in modern history. Last month, he welcomed Hollywood stars and filmmakers into the Vatican. Remember, it was more than a photo op. It was a statement about his love for cinema and storytelling. The celebrities who visited included Kate Blanchett, Monica Bellucci, Spike Lee. And in his address, the Pope described cinema as a play of light and shadow that helps people see deeper truths. He called cinemas meeting places where hearts open and minds explore ideas not yet imagined. He warned against algorithms that repeat what works and urged artists to offer hope, beauty, and truth, while honestly confronting pain without exploiting it. The Vatican also released the Pope's favorite films. It's A Wonderful Life, The Sound of Music, Life is Beautiful, and Ordinary People. They reflect his belief that cinema can teach us about joy, loss, grief, and hope. For the Pope, filmmakers are pilgrims of the imagination. He sees their work as a way to help people see God in themselves and find meaning in life. And his enthusiasm for cinema is not about Hollywood glamour. It's about community, shared stories, and the human experience. He cherished these same values as a young missionary hauling a projector through the Andes. In fact, he was born in Chicago, grew up during cinema's golden age. His appreciation for films is rooted in pastoral experience. The man who worked with him in Peru in the 1980s remembers riding mules to remote villages with a small film projector and battery. For the Pope, cinema was never just about entertainment. It was a way to bring communities together. Pope Leo's love for art is part of a broader style. Unlike his predecessor, he is comfortable with blending discipline with leisure. He plays tennis, swims, hosts athletes and artists alike, encouraging excellence and positive impact. In short, he loves movies not for fame, but for what they do best, or at least what they were meant to do: bring people together and help us see the best of humanity. Does weight management have a quick fix? A tangible solution has always eluded us, it seems. This comes even as the WHO estimates indicate 2.5 billion overweight adults worldwide, which includes 890 million obese people. And now a paradigm shift may be on the cards. As a new pill hits the market soon, the US drug regulator has approved a pill version of the weight loss injection produced by the Danish pharmaceutical firm Novo Nordisk. In fact, the drug is aimed at reducing excess body weight and maintain long-term weight reduction in adults who are overweight or obese and have at least one weight-related comorbid condition. It is expected to be launched in the US in January 2026. Now, here's how this pill stands out. It contains 25 mg of semaglutide. While the injection we referred to had to be taken weekly, the pill has to be taken once every morning with a sip of water on an empty stomach. As per the estimates, it will cost $149 per month. The pill is easier to take effect as it protects the medication for 30 minutes in the gut. However, it also has similar side effects like the injection, including nausea and diarrhea. During the clinical trials of the drug, 1/3 of close to 1,300 participants reportedly experienced 20% or greater weight loss after 64 weeks. Overall, the pill showed an average weight loss of 16.6%. And this comes as a major boost for the US, as nearly 40% of American adults are obese. Moreover, a recent survey showed that 1 in every 8 Americans used anti-obesity injections. Zepbound, produced by US drug maker, is another weight management drug available in the market, and the company is also coming up with its anti-obesity pill. However, it is pending approval from the US drug regulator, reportedly. Prior to this, Novo Nordisk was undergoing a slight slump with sliding shares and slowing sales of its injection. The approval of this bill brought about positive news for the drug maker as its stock jumped 7.18% during the intraday trading session in Denmark today. Until now, the anti-obesity injections were out of reach for many as they cost over $1,000 per month. While the new pill promises a better future, it remains to be seen whether the drug can actually live up to its promise of efficacy and help address the obesity crisis. In Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus Christ, the past 2 years have been tough to say the least because of the war in Gaza and tensions across the region. This year, Christmas celebrations slowly returning there, as a fragile ceasefire brings cautious optimism to a part of the world that depends heavily on tourism to just survive. Take a look. In Finland, the wolves are throwing something of a holiday party. The furry festival crashers have been targeting reindeer herds, the very same animals that help pay the bills for local families and also keep the tourists jolly during the Christmas season. Lapland, as everyone knows, is Santa's official headquarters, where tourists come from far and wide to click photos with jolly reindeer. But now, thanks to a wolf population that has climbed from about 295 to 430 in recent years, some of Santa's helpers are going missing.
The biggest challenges might be the climate change, but also the many kind of predators like wolves, bears and everything.
The Finnish Shepherds Association saying wolves have destroyed nearly 2,000 reindeer this year, which is a 70% jump from last year. That's a lot of elf-sized trouble. Experts are saying the wolf invasion is a mix of political shuffling, reduced hunting in Russia, and possibly even the ripple effects of the war in Ukraine. When humans upset the ecosystem next door, the wolves seem to get their party invitation from somewhere else. And for the herders, it's a bit of a nightmare. They are trying to keep the reindeer safe, tourists happy, and also the wolves at bay. All of this while maintaining that festive cheer. So that's a lot of work. In the end, it's a delicate balance between conservation, economy, and the fact that sometimes nature just does not read the holiday calendar. With the reindeer population shrinking, the wolves are keeping us wondering and making us wonder who let the wolves out. On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gampir, signing off. Thanks for watching.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS centenary year, Kesariya at 100.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind